Noise Radio. Powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. All Noise Radio is an internet radio station that's fully produced by graduates of the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. From modern rock to old school hip hop, country to classical, news, talk, sports, and more. It's the noise you can't ignore. Log on to allnoiseradio.com. Fire up the station. Find out more about your favorite jocks. Get the latest CSB news and more. Plus, you can take All Noise Radio with you on the go for free. Just download the Live 365 app to your iPhone, iPod Touch, or BlackBerry and search All Noise Radio. Check out tomorrow's broadcasters today at allnoiseradio.com. Powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Sit back down and shut your trap. It's time for
Keeping It Sports with M3, right here on All Noise Radio.
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Well, I'll need some beer.
Are you ready?
You have to ask me nicely.
Come on now, don't be bashful.
Are you ready? Are you ready for
Place for the best sports talk and news surrounding each league.
I can prove it with my usual flawless logic.
Hey man, this time I'm gonna do it my way.
What's your name again?
And now, here's your host, M3, Mike Rosansky. Coming to you from Cherry Hill, New Jersey. It's time for Keeping It Sports with M3, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everything's going well here on this Monday, the 17th day of February, President's Day. Happy holidays, everyone. Hope you're all enjoying your Monday off, for those of you that do. And hope you're all enjoying what is, as I said, one of my favorite times of the calendar. But now, at a time where it should be such a happy feeling, at a time that it should be such a glorious time because we're on the precipice of baseball returning. I mean, you got spring training games starting on Saturday. You have pitchers and catchers reporting last Tuesday and Wednesday. You've seen such jubilance, excitement by fan bases all around the sport. I mean, just take, for example, Garrett Cole after his first BP live batting practice session on Saturday or Sunday, got a standing ovation by Yankee fans at George M. Steinbrenner Field. A little too far? Yes. But it shows that fans are excited. Fans are jacked up for baseball to get going. Unfortunately for baseball, they still have this black cloud hanging over them. A black cloud that, no matter how badly they want it to go away, it's not disappearing anytime soon, people. It's not going away anytime soon. No matter how much baseball tries to push it away, try to make it a non-story, it continues to stick to them. And that, of course, is the Houston Astros sign-stealing scandal that, since the punishments came down, they've handled themselves worse and worse and worse. Whether it be Jim Crane's initial press conference after the report came out and firing both A.J. Hinch and Jeff Luhnow, to then at the Fan Fest the following weekend where Alex Bregman and Jose Altuve acted like total asses. And the fact that one Mr. Justin Verlander, who thinks he's the voice of the sport, likes to comment on everybody else's business. He hasn't even made one peep since then. They have downright embarrassed themselves. Last week was a chance for them to begin a healing process. Last week was a chance for them to come out, show remorse, acknowledge their mistakes. But like they've done all off season long, the Astros found a way to make it worse. Take, for example, first off, you have the owner, Jim Crane, show up at the press conference alongside Dusty Baker. Why Dusty Baker was even there at this press conference, I'll never know. because he had nothing to do with this. He just happens to have the job now because A.J. Hinch, while he wasn't part of the scheme, he knew what was going on and allowed the players to run amok in doing so. You have Alex Bregman and Jose Altuve come up with prepared statements, and the two of them speak for a combined 90 seconds, showed little to no remorse. And it gets even worse when you have no players available to take questions at the press conference, but Jim Crane sitting there once again alongside Dusty Baker and continuing to make himself look like an absolute ass. Take, for example, the comments that are going to follow him around and haunt him for a little while when it comes to the allegations or the report and how they broke the rule. Here's what he had to say about that.
Listen, the Yankees have had a few comments out there. Our opinion is, that this didn't impact the game. We had a good team. We won the World Series, and we'll leave it at that.
Oh, he says it did not impact the game, even though they were handed down punishments on this. So obviously, baseball thought it impacted the game. No less than about, I would say, minute 20 seconds later, does he come across as the biggest hypocrite when asked this question by ESPN's Jeff Passan.
Jim, when talking about the Yankees there, did you say you feel like this didn't impact the game? And what do you mean by that?
I didn't say it didn't impact the game. Basically, as the commissioner said in his report, he's not going to go backwards. It's hard to determine how it impacted the game, if it impacted the game, and that's where we're going to leave it.
Wait a minute. A minute ago, you said that it didn't impact the game in your opinion. Then you're going to pull a common politician-like move and say, I didn't say that. Wow. Just wow, Jim Crane. This guy comes off as such an all-around ass. First, he says, he gives you a kind of snarky remark in saying that, in our opinion, this did not impact the game when it clearly did, because your team had an advantage in your home ballpark that the other team didn't. Cameras locked in on the catcher to get their sign, in which you were relaying two hitters with the use of a banging of a trash can. And then when confronted by the question again, your only response is, I didn't say that. I didn't. A classic thing that we've seen many politicians do over the years. Really. Then he gets asked about the possibility of buzzers being used. We know that's been a big talking point recently.
The commissioner addressed that in the report, and I'm confident it's accurate. I've discussed it with the players, and they've assured me that nothing like that ever happened. There's no substance to that whatsoever. And I believe AJ made a comment last night and cleared that up. I truly believe there was no buzzers ever, and I don't even know where that came from.
It comes from the fact that if you watch the final play, the final pitch of your win against the Yankees in the 2019 ALCS, you will see your star second baseman rounding third base, coming toward home, tugging at the top of his jersey, yelling, "Don't rip off my jersey. Don't rip off my jersey." And then 2 minutes later, after he's hugging teammates, as all the rest of his teammates are throwing on the World Series hat, World Series team shirt, he runs down the steps to the clubhouse, comes back about a minute later with the ALCS t-shirt and hat on, clearly without the jersey on under it. And you don't think that is going to lead to suspicion. That's not going to lead to people questioning, thinking that this was going on. I mean, the report may have said that they stopped with the banging of the trash cans in early 2018. But who's to say that stopped them from cheating altogether? Who's to say that stopped them from continuing in a different way? Maybe they found a new method, knowing that there were players from that team that were no longer on their team that could potentially spread that around the league. And one of those being, of course, the man that opened our eyes to all of this in Mike Fiers, formerly of the Astros, now of the Oakland A's. And what I find interesting about all of this is the more time has gone on, the more reports that come out, because you're seeing reports leak all over the place, whether it be the Wall Street Journal last week, that article talking about how Carlos Beltran was the mastermind behind all of this, and it tried to depict him as someone that the other players were too intimidated to go up to and say, hey, stop this. Hey, don't do this. And you saw Carlos Correa come out and say that was complete nonsense. I mean, these are all grown men. They're not going to be intimidated and fearful of one of their teammates, no matter how much older than he may be. You also saw a report with last week where Correa, and I mentioned Correa here because he's the only one on Thursday when this press conference happened that came out contrite about this, came out apologetic about all of this, and seemed to show remorse, seemed to show realizing that they did something wrong. You didn't see that from Altuve. You didn't see that from Bregman, Springer, Reddick. I know Correa tried to come out and say that Altuve and Reddick really weren't part of this. They didn't want to know the signs, but I find that to be a bunch of nonsense. I mean, when you have guys that weren't even on that team anymore that are coming out and apologizing, that were part of the situation, whether it be Marwin Gonzalez, whether it be J.D. Davis and Jake Marisnick. And you're going to tell me that two of the more prominent players on the team, two of your leaders, were not part of it when even young kids on the team were apologizing? Come on, give me a break. That's a little bit hard to believe. Verlander actually made some comments when questioned by reporters on Thursday, but he, what a surprise, came off as kind of a hypocrite, kind of a guy that he actually said during there when asked if he thinks this is a widespread thing around the league, he goes, and I quote, "Well, I don't want to comment on what other teams are doing." All you ever do is comment on what other teams are doing. Are you kidding me? Every time there's a domestic violence suspension, every time someone fails a PED test, or a batter gets hit by a pitch intentionally because they're dominating the opposition, every time there's some kind of controversy, he comes out and makes a statement as if, as I said, he's the voice of baseball. Now you don't want to comment on it? Now is the moment where you're saying, that I'm not going to comment on what other teams are doing. And he sounds like a complete joke, a complete fool. Everyone with that Astros team in their lame duck apology sounded like a fool. And you saw a lot of anger around the league over the next couple days when players were responding to those apologies or so-called apologies by the Astros. And usually players around baseball especially, and in any sport, I'll say this, when they're giving a comment or giving thought on something that's occurring with another team, they give you the most vanilla, bland thoughts and opinions of any thing that doesn't involve their team. Well, not here. Not in the case of these players, especially when it comes to the reigning defending National League MVP, Cody Bellinger.
I thought Jim Crane's was weak. I thought Manfred's punishment was weak, giving him immunity. These guys were cheating for 3 years. I think what people don't realize is Altuve stole an MVP from Judge in 17. Everyone knows they stole the ring from us. I know personally I lost respect for those guys. I would say everyone in the show, in the big leagues, lost respect for those guys. I don't know what human hits a walk-off home run against Aroldis Chapman to send your team to the World Series. And one has the thought to say, don't rip my jersey off, but two, go in the tunnel, change your shirt, and then come out and do your interview. Like that makes no sense to me. It makes zero sense to me, because I know me. Gary Sanchez said yesterday, you can rip my shirt off, my pants off. I sent my team to the World Series off for Aroldis Chapman in the ninth inning at home. You can do, I'm going crazy.
And the thought that, or the comment I should say, that he was referencing was the day before Gary Sanchez stated that in the situation of Altuve hitting the walk-off home run, all I could say is, if that was me, you could rip my pants off if I hit a home run in that spot. And who in their right mind, the first thing they're going to be thinking of rounding the bases on a walk-off home run is, don't rip off my jersey? And the excuse that he's tried to use is that he's shy and that his wife doesn't want him taking his shirt off. But go on his social media accounts, you can find a bunch of pictures with him with his shirt off on the beach. And then Correa tries to use the flat excuse on Friday of, he has an unfinished tattoo on under there and didn't want anyone to see that. I mean, how many more lies? How many more things are they going to come out about and lie about before they're going to have to walk this all back and realize how stupid they are? Because we haven't seen the end of these leaks coming out. We haven't seen the end of this coming out. There's probably more people out there that know stuff that we don't. I mean, we haven't heard from Jeff Luhnow yet. We haven't heard from Brandon Talkman yet. I'm surprised that no one has tried to interview him, because I figure, and in the case of Luhnow as well, that guys who are fired usually have a score, and especially, Luhnow, remember when the report first came out, he thought he was thrown under the bus and was treated unfairly. But then you read the Wall Street Journal article last week, and it talks about the code breakers term that they use for this, how he was first introduced to this through an Excel sheet back in September 2016 by an intern, and even would go in the video room or peek his head in the video room during games in 2017 saying code breaking. And he was, this from top to bottom, this was going on. This was poorly handled. And, you look at Jim Crane and how he handled this, but he allowed this to go on. While he maybe didn't specifically run it, he hired Jeff Luhnow. Jeff Luhnow, who orchestrated this with players. AJ Hinch was the manager, didn't step in and stop this at any point when he had the opportunity. And none of the veterans. See, the players have gotten off scotch-free here, because the excuse that Manfred and and Crane have used in all of this is saying that the players were under poor guidance. They weren't truly informed of the rules. Well, first off, common sense will tell you this is against the rules. And B, under poor guidance. What are these 12-year-olds? And come on, these are all grown men here. They can make decisions, make thoughts for themselves. They all decided to go along with this, all decided to be a part of this, and decided to make an embarrassment of the entire situation. You also we're waiting to hear from the commissioner, Rob Manfred. We're waiting to hear his thoughts on this, and he finally did the media tour yesterday when he did a interview with ESPN's Carl Ravitch, as well as a press conference late in the day, a press conference that wasn't even aired on television. MLB Network couldn't cut away from the movie Bull Durham at 4:30 to air his press conference. I mean, that to me seemed like a really bad job there. But I was able to watch his interview with Carl Ravitch and took away a couple of things here. One, when he was asked about punishing the players, he says, and quote, "We knew if we had disciplined the players, in all likelihood, we were going to have grievances that we were going to lose on the basis that we never properly informed them of the rules." What do you mean you never properly informed them of the rules? You sent that memo around in 2017 after the Red Sox were caught with the Apple Watch. And if they didn't know then it was against the rules, then I mean, who are you kidding? And the fact that, as I said, it should have been common sense that's against the rules. The fact that you have a camera in your home ballpark in center field locked on the catcher that the other team can't see, and it's fed to your video room. And they say, oh, we would have lost the grievances. Nonsense. Because you put the punishment, you suspend the players. You put punishments on them. Say the Players Association then files a grievance. You look around the sport and you see the fact that all the players from other teams have been coming out with comments, pissed off, angry about this, saying they don't trust or respect the Astros anymore. All of them would have been knocking at the front door of Tony Clark or calling him on their phone saying, hey, yeah, you represent them, but you also represent us. And we are a larger body of your Players Association than they are. You better not file grievances there. You better make sure that they are punished because they cheated the game. They screwed the integrity of this sport. Manfred also said that, and I think a lot of this, he tries to deny it, saying that this is not just for the Astros situation, but he goes on to talk about how, end quote, "It is simply not appropriate to express whatever frustration you may have out on the Astros situation by putting someone at physical risk by throwing at them." And that comment stems after the day prior on Saturday when Dusty Baker sent out basically a call to MLB through the media saying that, oh, I hope that they protect my players. I hope that there's harsh punishment for anybody that throws at a member of the Houston Astros or any pitcher that throws at them in potential retaliation. And you know what? I've never been for headhunting or never been for throwing at a batter because, they're a dominant player. Take, for example, remember one of my greatest rants on here was in late August, early September of 2018 when Ronald Acuna had a series against the Miami Marlins in which he hit 3 or 4 home runs over the course of the first, I think it was a 5-game series they played, one of those weird ones. Over the course of the first 4 games of that series, he had 3 or 4 home runs. And in his first at-bat of the next game, the young pitcher, Arena for the Marlins, comes in and throws near his head, hits him in the top of his arm on the first pitch of the game. That kind of stuff I don't approve of. If you can't get the guy out, that's your problem. But in this situation, where baseball clearly has not punished the Astros, where it seems like they weren't going to even investigate this until Mike Fiers went public, I'm all for vigilante justice. I'm all for brushing them off the plate, throwing at their arm, throwing at their shoulder, throwing at their hip. Because you know what? In the player's mind, as I said, if you're not going to punish the Astros, we are. They screwed all of us. They didn't just screw the Yankees, didn't just screw the Dodgers. They screwed, the A's, they've been good the last couple of years. Who's to say that they couldn't have won a couple more games against the Astros and won the AL West? The fact that you had so many teams, that this was also reported last week, so many teams and players, coaches, representation from teams all around the league were calling the Washington Nationals before the World Series, telling them, hey, this is what you got to look out for. We're warning you. These guys are dirty. They're doing something against the rules here. You got to protect yourselves here. Shows you how angry, how vengeful the rest of the league is toward this, because they were given an advantage that no one else had. It impacted the game in a way that we've never seen before. I mean, because you think back, the steroid scandal, I've always believed with that was more about players wanting to improve their own personal well-being. They juice up, increase their ability to perform, in turn increase their stats, and then would increase their earning power. It wasn't about, for none of them, whether it was Bonds, McGuire, Sosa, Roger Clemens, Palmeiro, Canseco, none of them. It was about winning. It wasn't about being a champion. I mean, you look at those guys. Roger Clemens was the only one that won any World Series titles. So for all of, and A-Rod as well, got to throw him in there. None of those guys that are ripped, I'm not going to throw Ortiz in there because he seems to get the equivalent of a presidential pardon by baseball. But all of those guys were just about increasing their own stock, not winning. This was a team that was specifically cheating to improve their chances at winning a World Series, tainting a World Series. And Manfred can say that, he didn't strip them of the title because it would be unprecedented. Well, set that precedent. Set a precedent that, I'm not saying you got to give the trophy to the Yankees or the Dodgers. That's not what I want. I want it just to say vacant. No champion this year. Like the embarrassment you had in '94 when the players were on strike and the World Series was canceled this year. Have an embarrassment here. Because this not just affected other teams, this affected other people's lives. You got a former MLB pitcher, guy named Mike Bolsinger, who's filing a lawsuit against the Astros because of the sign stealing scandal. And while I don't think his lawsuit is going to serve much merit, because you look at the guy's career numbers, he was pretty much a scrub, you can argue that the Astros did hurt his chances of maintaining a job in the big leagues. His last appearance was August 4th, 2017 against the Houston Astros, where he gave up 4 runs over the course of a third of an inning, was DFA'd the next day, hasn't been seen in the majors since, is pitching over in Japan somewhere. And they put out a spreadsheet of showing how many times they heard banging in games, banging of the trash can over the course of that season. That game had the most sounds of a trash can bang at 54 during it. So, this has just been an all-around embarrassment for baseball and the Astros, one that by every turn they keep making look worse. Whether it be the Astros' horrible attempt at an apology the other day, whether it be Jim Crane and saying that, this didn't affect the sport, to the fact that other than Carlos Correa, none of the players seem to show remorse, seem to show any realization that they did wrong here. To Rob Manfred and him coming out saying that, won't be tolerated any retaliation, even though he handed down the worst punishment in the world, because he felt giving full immunity was the only way he could get full truth. I said it last week, I'll say it again. They're not being punished. There's no way you can look at this and say that they're being punished. You look at the punishments that were handed out toward the Houston Astros. Jim Crane was fined $5 million. He's rich as hell. That he's probably got that in his ashtray. He's probably got that in sitting in his car somewhere. They're saying that was the most I could find him based on the Constitution of Baseball. Well, the Constitution of Baseball is outdated. The Constitution of Baseball was probably written back at a time where $5 million in that sport was considered a heavy fine, a heavy punishment. Think about it. There was a day and time where Dave Winfield signed the richest contract in the history of this sport at 10 years for $23 million. 10 for 23, all right? Then you take away their first and second round draft picks for the next 2 years. As we've seen in baseball, there's no bigger crapshoot than their draft. All the other sports, NBA, NFL, NHL, you got a good chance to pick a great player in the first round of those drafts. In baseball, you have as good a chance of selecting a great player in the first round as you do in, say, the 30th round. It's all about how guys develop. It's all about, if a guy develops late, late bloomer, guy may have not been great in college, but all of a sudden you get him in your system under the right tutelage and he blossoms into a star. It's happened plenty of times. And add in the fact that you spend Hinch and Lunau for a year. They get fired by Jim Crane, and he's able to go outside the organization, cherry pick James Crick from the Rays, and bring in Dusty Baker as a replacement. Doesn't sound like much of a punishment to me. If you really wanted to punish him, you suspend the owner for 3 years. You suspend the manager and general manager for a year. If they get fired from that, then you tell them you can't go outside the organization for the duration of this year. You especially can't cherry pick from another organization for general managers in the month of January. That was unfair there. And you put down a suspension on the players, knowing that players around the league were going to line up going to the head of the Players Association saying, don't fight this. They deserve this. Every player you asked wanted them to be punished for this, as they should have, and you give them the biggest embarrassment of them all and strip them of the World Series. Yeah, well, originally I was against that. I was against that mindset of thinking, stripping people of championships, because we see that all the time in the NCAA. We see that happen when it comes to teams in these championships and how it comes off as kind of fugazi. That places an embarrassment on that organization forever, knowing that their one and only title that they've won in their franchise's history, while they may still have the rings, they still may have the memories in their head, they don't have that trophy anymore, they don't have that banner anymore, and the whole memory of it is tainted because the players decided to cheat and the organization was rotten from the top all the way down. I'm going to take my first break here because unfortunately I got to drink some water. My mouth's starting to get dried up. But hey, I still got plenty left to get to throughout this podcast. Give you some thoughts on All-Star Weekend. Give you some thoughts on Myles Garrett, his defiance on Friday. Yeonis Cespedes, some comments he made today, as well as rule changes that have been put in place for baseball this year. Remember, at any time if you feel like calling in during this podcast, if you're watching the live feed, be sure to do so at 856-330-4749. I saw someone did try to call in before. If you're still watching, try to call in again. It's Monday. Whatever you're doing, sit back, relax, and hey, continue keeping it sports with M3.
I'll be back.
You know, our jobs occupy more than half our waking hours. Shouldn't we be doing something we love? Call Connecticut School of Broadcasting at 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to gocsb.com. Since 1964, Connecticut School of Broadcasting, with a network of 12 campuses from Massachusetts to Miami, has helped place thousands of grads as DJs, sportscasters, entertainment reporters, behind the scenes in audio and video production, every aspect of the broadcast media. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has trained men and women of all ages and backgrounds in a matter of months, not years. Learn by doing from area radio and TV pros. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to gocsb.com. Remember, it's never too late to love what you do. Day and evening classes begin soon. Get trained. Get connected now.
Welcome back to Keeping Sports with M3. Hope you're all enjoying your Monday afternoon. Remember, at any time if you want to get in touch with the program here, be sure to go check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/Keeping Sports with M3, as well as my two Twitter accounts, my personal Twitter account at M3Rosansky, as well as the account I've set up for this podcast at Keeping It Sports. And hey, if you don't feel like watching me do this live and you're only listening to the podcast, be sure to click the share button, send it around to your friends, tell them check out the podcast, and send in any questions, comments, thoughts, opinions that you or they may have, and I'll be sure to get to them at some point. As well as if you feel like calling in, if you're watching live, be sure to do so. 856-330-4749. Now, I was talking about for the first, about 35 minutes there, what was an awful week for the Astros and MLB PR-wise. And meanwhile, while they've got this dark gray cloud hanging over them, it was such a wonderful, refreshing, great weekend for the NBA after what has really felt like a month out of a bad movie ever since the tragic passing of Kobe Bryant. And as NBA fans, this was kind of a moment. This was a moment for everyone to just come together and begin the healing process together as fans in what was a fantastically done weekend by the league. I mean, Friday night notwithstanding, Friday night you had the dopey celebrity all-star game, which I understand they like to have it themed toward that city when it comes to celebrities. But do all of them need to be from Chicago? Because that was an atrocity to watch. And, we all know Common can play basketball. We've seen him a couple times play in the celebrity game. But do we need to have some of these other people in there who probably haven't touched the basketball since they were a teenager, because it was just, if you're into that kind of stuff, watching celebrities play basketball horribly, God bless you, because I could barely make it through half of this with how poor the play was. But you got to Saturday night. Saturday night was fun. Saturday night is a very enjoyable night, a night that, I always think to myself, if there's nothing going on, I'll get into that. I'll watch that. And when I do watch it, I enjoy it. It's a little bit of a change. You get to see players, not in such a serious mindset, get to let their guard down a little bit, and you get to see a little bit of a personality out of these guys, with a big skill challenge where I like what they've done recently, having it be the big men versus the guards. And the last a couple times in the last few years, you've actually seen the big guys win this, including this year with Miami's Bam Adebayo winning the skills challenge. In fact, I think the Final Four in this were all of the big guys. He was in the Final Four. Sabonis was there as well, and it's gotten better with all the kind of little nuances that they've added to this, as well as I said, allowing the big men to participate. The 3-point shootout has kind of turned into the main event for the night, and I do like that they added a little bit of difficulty with having those Mountain Dew shots from 35 feet out put on the floor there, where if you make it, it's 3 points onto your total. That was kind of cool there. And then you get to the dunk contest, where the big problem I got with the dunk contest, and it's probably something a lot of you agree with, a lot of people take displeasure in, is that we don't get the stars in it. Yeah, these guys that participate are very good at what they do. They obviously are very athletic, or they wouldn't be able to jump as high and as creative with their dunks as they look. But I want to see the stars in it. You saw, back in his day, Michael Jordan play in it. Dominique played in it. Kobe participated once. Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady was in it. Once upon a time, Dwight Howard was a star player in this league. He participated in it back then. Remember, with putting the Superman cape on, we saw him get back in the mix this year, and I thought it was a very touching, the tribute that he paid to Kobe Bryant with ripping the Superman symbol off his chest, and it had the 24 in the middle of the logo. That was cool. Pat Connaughton had that cool dunk where he tipped it off the backboard while in midair. That was very cool there. And it was a fun back and forth between Derrick Jones and Aaron Gordon, although problem with Derrick Jones is he did nothing but between the legs dunks with his left hand the entire time. There wasn't any, at least you saw Gordon do, like a 360 tomahawk or reverse tomahawks with some of his dunks. It's, of course, been the biggest talk from that night, the controversy at the end with Aaron Gordon, how he scores 50 on 5 consecutive dunks, and then his final one jumping over the tallest player in the league in Taco Fall. He only gets a 47, and I know the officials were the judges, should I say, for this, were trying to say afterwards that we had agreed we were going to try and get it to be a tie on that final dunk, so that both guys would win it, since neither guy deserved to lose. And yeah, neither guy deserved to lose, but leave it to Dwayne Wade to screw the entire thing up. I mean, typical of the guy. And he scores a 10 for his guy, Derek Jones in the Miami Heat. What a surprise. And then for Aaron Gordon, only gives him a 9. I mean, I've been telling you people this for years, that Dwayne Wade's a jackass. And it's only now people are starting to wake up and realize this. Since the moment that big three was put together back in 2010, he's handled himself like a classless punk. And, that night was no different. Sunday night was a refreshing change of pace from your typical all-star game. I expected it to be different with the new rules that they put in place. And although you had the awful performance of the national anthem by Shaka Khan beforehand, it didn't ruin the spirits of what was a great night. With the fact, I love the fact that they had every quarter there was a score reset to 0, and then it all get added up for the fourth quarter, an untimed quarter, for them to play to 157, with that being the target number, by adding 24 onto Team Yeonis's team total at the end of the 3 quarters. I thought that was pretty cool. Renaming the MVP award for the event after Kobe Bryant, a very good tribute. And I think no better person than Kawhi Leonard to win the inaugural Kobe Bryant award. You saw how much Kobe meant to him after the game. He's talking about how they would work out in the off season. They lived about 10 minutes apart in California. Kobe even suggested to him when he first came to LA that he also start taking the helicopter to avoid the LA traffic to all of the Clippers home games, and how Kobe was really a mentor to him. So it was a fitting tribute, fitting closer to what was a great night, a great weekend for the NBA. And now we head into the final stretch here. Final stretch of games here where a whole lot to be decided, a whole lot of questions to still be answered. The Rookie of the Year debate up there with Ja Morant and Zion Williamson. Talking about can Zion catch Ja Morant? And a lot of that, I think, is going to play into not just both players' performances, but both teams' performances. Currently the Pelicans are 6 games back of the Grizzlies in the loss column for that final seed in the Western Conference playoffs, and they have one less game left than do the Memphis Grizzlies. And Morant, you haven't really seen a slip in his performance. I know Zion has had these back-to-back 30-point nights, has been incredible over his first 10 games of his career. But to me, he's got to not just go well above Ja Morant's performance. He's got to get his team to the playoffs, because Ja Morant, his team either makes the playoffs or falls short by 1 game, and his performance remains as good as it's been up to this point, doesn't hit that rookie wall, and Zion doesn't get to the postseason, I think it's a wrap there. I think you got to give it to Ja. To me, he's far ahead of Zion in this race right now, just because of the fact he's been playing all year, while Zion didn't come back from an injury until mid-January. You look at both conferences, wondering, all right, who's going to be the biggest threat to the Bucks in the Eastern Conference? In all likelihood, they're going to be the 1 seed, but who's going to be that team that pushes them the most when we get to the Eastern Conference playoffs? Would be Boston, who is been better this year without Kyrie Irving. What a surprise. Toronto Raptors, who, they're without Kawhi Leonard, but they're still as formidable as anyone. I mean, they just before the break, their loss to the Nets ended what was a 15-game win streak, longest in franchise history. The Heat, who have been a pleasant surprise to everyone. And then, of course, there's the Sixers. But the problem with the Sixers is they're great at home, 25-2, and a lottery team on the road at 9-19. So I don't know how you can trust them as a formidable threat to Milwaukee with their poor performance in road games. And out west, to me, it's all about, can anybody stop what seems like the inevitable at this point? Anyone stop that Western Conference Finals matchup, the battle for LA, battle of the Staples Center between the Lakers and the Clippers? And I don't look at Houston as that team that could do it, because I do think this small ball thing they're trying to do is going to catch up on them at the end. I like Utah and Denver, but we saw what a struggle it was with Denver against the Lakers on their home court to close out the pre-All-Star break. And the Lakers and Clippers just seem to have kind of depth that none of these other teams can match. The only thing that I think could get in the way of this all is, if anything, and you knock on wood here with this, anything happens to LeBron. Because my concern with LeBron is it feels like he's trying to prove a point as far as being a regular season warrior rather than preparing for the postseason. I know his minutes per game are at a career low at 34.9, but still, he even missed a game this year. And last look, I think he has played in all of 53 games that the Lakers have played up until this point. Let me just check that real quick. He's missed 2 games this entire year. And while I'm not a big fan of the Kawhi Leonard load management stuff, anything like that, he hasn't had to push his body as much as LeBron James has, who he's in remarkable shape. He's a remarkable athlete, doing what he's doing at this incredible level. But it's his 17th year in the league. Before last year, he played in 8 consecutive finals. So you're essentially adding about 4 years of playing time there onto that body, maybe 3 years of playing time onto that body. You also include the finals appearance he had with the Cavs during his first run there. So he's got kind of the wear and tear of a guy that's played 20 years in the league. And I hope this is not the case, but as we all know, Father Time's undefeated. At some point, the previous battles, previous wars catch up to you. So that, to me, is going to be the biggest question with this Lakers team, and the biggest deterrent as far as stopping what we all want to see. Maybe unless you live in the city of Denver or Utah. Denver, great city this time of year, by the way, is that battle of the Staples Center between the two Western Conference powerhouses. All right, I'm going to take another break here, come back on the other side. A couple people made some very questionable comments over the last couple of days. Get to those. Continue keeping it sports with M3.
I'll be back.
It's been 48 years Connecticut School of Broadcasting has helped place thousands of people, just like you, in exciting careers in radio, television, and the new media. At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, our hands-on approach is different. It's designed to have you spend less time in the classroom and more time in the studios. From the first day, you'll work with state-of-the-art equipment. Learn by doing from our team of industry professionals who come from their studios to ours. The best part about it, you'll learn it all in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has a network of 12 campuses from Massachusetts to Miami. Remember, it's never too late to love what you do. So do what I did. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO. Step into the fast-paced world of the broadcast media. Day and evening classes begin soon. Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Get trained and get connected now. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to gocsb.com.
Welcome back to Keeping It Sports with M3. About halfway through here, but still a lot left to touch on. No surprise, this was one of the most well-known secrets in the NBA the last couple of years, but Kevin Durant finally came out and admitted over the last couple days what we all knew all along, and that was the Draymond Green incident from 2 years ago had a big impact on his decision to leave the Warriors. And quote, I isolated myself from the Warriors after the Draymond Green incident. Remember where in the timeout of an overtime game in November of 2017, I believe that was, no, November 2018, excuse me. That was last year with the Warriors. They got in a face-to-face confrontation. Draymond Green kind of made things personal there, and you saw DeMarcus Cousins trying to calm down Green while Durant was walking away from the situation, and you could read his lips saying, "That's why I'm leaving." We knew it all along. It was just a matter of whether or not Kevin was going to actually come out and say it. And Kevin, for someone who's not playing this year, seems to have a lot to say. You've seen him always getting in these Twitter beefs with ex-athletes, with media members, seeing him acknowledge the fact that he has a burner account and that he continues to use that burner account. So he's continued to show that he is a very sensitive guy compared to most star athletes in sports. Another person who's very sensitive is one Mr. Yeonis Cespedes, who we have not seen or heard a lot from Cespedes in the last couple of years, and that's because he hasn't been available on the playing field for the New York Mets. I mean, the last time he played in a game from them was in June of 2018, and what was funny about that spot, if I remember, he had just come back from an injury. He had just come back from missing a lot of time due to injury issues, had a home run in a game against the Yankees as a DH, and then brings up how, oh yeah, I may need heel surgery. I don't know if I'm going to be able to play the rest of the way. I think it was like a week later he was out for the rest of the year, and we haven't seen him since. When you add in that and the fact that he re-injured himself with that wild boar incident on his property last year. I mean, let's face it, it's been kind of a tumultuous time as a New York Met with Cespedes. He comes out with he comes over here in 2015, has that great second half that gets them to the playoffs. They go on a run to the World Series before losing to the Royals. He has an all-star campaign the following year in which he finished in the top 10 for the MVP award. The Mets give him the big new contract. And since then, he hasn't played much. He missed 81 games the following year. He missed 124 games in 2018. Didn't play at all last year. So he's missed well north of 300 games, if my math is correct on all this. And now he's going to come back and have comments toward the media today that when they wanted to talk to him, he and asked about his status, asked about his heel recovery, asked about the wild boar encounter. He says, no, not today, not tomorrow, not at all this year. So you're not going to talk to the media at all this year. And this is coming from a guy that put out a video of in recent weeks of him working out, training to come back. And in the background, you have voices of different sports personalities in not just New York, but across the baseball landscape, commenting on him, commenting on his injury. Every negative comment he heard, he put out there. So, to hell with him. As far as I'm concerned, the media should not really waste their time if he's going to be an ass like this. You just hope if you're a Met fan that if he can play, he can contribute something positive to them and not be a negative, not be a guy that brings down what was a pretty close-knit clubhouse last year with his moody, all-about-me attitude. We also saw Myles Garrett get reinstated from his suspension last week. Remember, he had been suspended the final 6 games. In fact, it was an indefinite suspension for that on-the-field incident with Mason Rudolph to conclude the Browns-Steelers matchup on Thursday Night Football in Week 11. We all remember what happened. Rudolph throws the ball. Myles Garrett decides to take him down on the last play of the game, even though the game was pretty much over at that point. You can argue what side you're on. I still don't believe that Myles Garrett or Mason Rudolph was trying to take off his helmet, because to me, if you're trying to take off someone's helmet, you wouldn't have your left hand palmed on the top of their helmet. Yeah, he got the hand stuck in the face mask, but that was probably from trying to push the guy off him. I still don't believe he was trying to rip the helmet off. And Garrett went ballistic after that. Garrett went nuts, leading to the situation where he was indefinitely suspended. I thought they would have given him at least a game or two on to next year, just kind of set a precedent here. Let everyone know that his suspension's going into this year, just so it's not like, just because the season's over and you showed remorse and the Browns didn't make the playoffs, doesn't mean your suspension's just going to end like that. They need to set an example there, because remember, they said that he wasn't going to play again last year, even if the Browns made the playoffs. So there should be some kind of account for that there. And just leave it embodied in everyone's mind. This is why he's still suspended, not have a situation where we're all forgetting about this just because the season's over. But my biggest surprise here is that he actually has the nerve to double down on his nonsense from a couple of months ago. Remember, when he met with the NFL, when he tried to fight his suspension, he made the claim that Mason Rudolph used a racial slur against him. And the NFL investigated, asked everyone involved in this situation. Their microphones didn't pick up anything because supposedly the mics on the players go off during the play. Those are only for after the play, before the play, and on the sidelines. I don't know if I believe them there, but no one heard anything. No one was able to pick anything up. And in any video evidence they have, they can't seem to see Mason Rudolph using the N-word. He's come out to deny it. Teammates have come out to deny it. Mike Tomlin went on ESPN this morning with a strong defense of his player, And still, Myles Garrett brings this up in his interview on ESPN the other day, still claiming that Mason Rudolph used a racial slur against him. I don't get why he's doubling down on this. I mean, it's one thing if someone heard this or we were able to pick it up through, watching the game and reading his lips, or the microphones after the play when they were on the ground were back on and you could hear this. But never once is there evidence that he used the N-word. At least I hope there's not, because that to me is that even more so than calling a woman the C word or calling her the S word, dropping the N-bomb on a African-American person, man, woman, child, is the worst word in the entire English dictionary, and a word that white people such as myself can't even ever consider going anywhere near, or should never go anywhere near using that word, or even thinking about using that word. But no, if at this point, if I'm Mason Rudolph, I do one of two things. I either take a lie detector test and prove my innocence here, or I file a lawsuit against this guy and let's see what his story is then. Because, as I said, I don't get what Myles Garrett is trying to prove here by doubling down on something that clearly is not there. All right, going to take one last break, come back, close things up, continue keeping it sports with M3.
I'll be back.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting founder Dick Robinson.
You know, the media business has changed a lot since we opened our doors in 1964. Now media content is everywhere, on air, online, on the go. More than ever, companies are looking for people to help drive this new media.
At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, you'll get hands-on training on the latest software and equipment in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has placed thousands of grads in broadcast media careers.
It's all about versatility. You see, at a radio station, if you also know how to shoot, edit, and post videos, you become a pretty hot commodity. That's the training you get at Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting, with locations up and down the East Coast, from Massachusetts to Miami. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to gocsb.com. Connecticut School of Broadcasting, the nation's oldest and largest group of broadcast media schools, redefining training in radio, TV, and new media. Get trained. Get connected. 1-800-TV-RADIO.
Welcome back to Keeping Sports with M3. A couple more minutes left here, but want to close out with some more baseball talk. Nothing involving the Astros this time, I promise you that. But hey, I'm excited for games to get underway. I mentioned earlier, spring training games will start on Saturday, and now I'm looking forward to watching the Yankees play on Saturday afternoon. I know they won't have the A squad out there. You probably have a bunch of one or two of their guys competing for the fifth spot in the rotation in their pitching. Probably get to see a lot of the minor leaguers during this, but it's baseball. I'm excited to get the juices flowing, get blood pumping once again for the sport to get going, get the marathon that is the baseball season underway. Now, of course, as we see every time of year, there are new rule changes usually put out there, put in place for the sport. Get everybody under the understanding of what's going to take place this year. And after a couple of years of talking about it, they're going to finally install this 3-batter minimum rule when it comes to the relief pitcher. If reliever comes in, start an inning, he's got to face 3 batters before he can leave. The only difference in that is if, say, you come in with 1 out in the inning and you get the final 2 outs, or come in with 2 outs in the inning, get the final out, then you can make the change the start of the next inning. Not really sure how I feel about this rule. I mean, I've been kind of going back and forth on this one. On one hand, I don't like seeing all the relief pitching changes where the manager pacing back and forth, wearing out a path between the dugout and the mound to make the change. But I also don't want to see anything change the integrity of the game, affect the game here where you're taking away any potential strategy. I've always argued with the technology we now have that there should be some kind of way where the manager can make the pitching change from the dugout. Put some kind of box in front of them, or even just, you got the guy warming up. You stand on the top step. You wave your left hand if you want the lefty. Wave your right hand if you want the righty. It's not that hard. Why? If you know you're taking the guy out, no matter what he says, what argument he may have for you in that spot, why do you need to walk out there? Do you see in the NBA, you see a coach walk out to center court when he wants to sub one of his players back in? Or NFL, when you're making changes on defense or bringing in another offensive lineman to run a max protect to offense, you see the coach walk to the middle of the field and tap the guy on the shoulder saying you're out and bringing in the other guy, handing the ball to them? No. So why should it be that way in baseball? Then you got a couple of the rules here that I do like, though. You got the roster size from the start of the season through August 31st, and then it goes to this in the postseason. It's increased from 25 to 26 players with a maximum of 13 pitchers. There, at least you're keeping control of that. A lot of teams we've seen in recent years play with their 25-man roster with having 13 pitchers on it. Now they're putting a limit on the number of pitchers that can be on the team at one time. I do like that. And that includes in September, where finally they got rid of what was the dumbest rule in the history of the sport, where, remember, September 1st rolls around and all of a sudden everybody on your 40-man roster is eligible to be on the big league squad. You can call up 15 guys on September 1st, and some teams wouldn't even call up all 15. You'd see one situation where one team's playing with 39 players and another team's playing with 31. I mean, it never made sense, and that was time consuming because, I mentioned with the reliever thing there, every batter from like the 5th or 6th innings on, you were seeing, all right, here's a lefty, bring in the lefty. All right, he got him out, bring in the righty, and so on and so forth. It was not what baseball's about. Maybe this will now influence teams to leave the starter out there a little longer, especially if he's rolling, and not think so much about the the third time through the lineup nonsense. Leave your pitcher in. Let's get back to the days where we got some workhorses in the big leagues, rather than looking at 5 innings, giving up 1 run, a good days of work. I mean, please, it's kind of embarrassing if you ask me. They made some rules here to someone put a limit on when you can use a position player as a pitcher. One, you have to designate a player as a two-way player, and a player only will qualify if he occurs both 20 major league innings pitched and at least 20 major league games started as position player DH the previous year, and that player must be announced as a designated two-way player prior to the start of the game. Also, if you want to use a position player as a pitcher, any player that may appear as a pitcher following the 9th inning in an extra inning game, or if the game in the ninth inning if his team is winning or losing by 6 or more runs, then you can bring them in. But having the 13 pitchers on the staff in the first 5 months of the season and then expanding to 28 players, maximum 14 pitchers in September, teams should have more than enough guys in the pen that they can roll a pitcher out there when they're getting their ass kicked. I mean, it happens to everybody every once in a while. We get that drubbing, you lose by 8, 9, 10 runs there. Why should you be able to just fudge it and go with a position player? They got the extra player rule that doubleheader, teams can bring up a 27th player on the roster, as well as they changed up the IL reinstatement period and the optioning period for pitchers. And you can blame the Los Angeles Dodgers for this one, because they used to make it seem like they were traveling around with like a 30 to 35 man roster with how much maneuvering they were doing after games, putting players on the phantom DL. Well, now for pitchers, if you're going down to the minor leagues, unless there's an injury, you can't come back up for another 15 days. And if you're put on the IL, you can't. You're now on the IL instead of 10 days. You're on it for at least 15 days. So I thought that was a good change there. Now, the potential change I don't like, and nothing's been put out here official about this by Major League Baseball. This came out just as I was getting done with the podcast this time last week. And part of me thinks that this was a well-placed leak by baseball to kind of distract our minds from the Astros scandal and how poorly they've handled things. But I don't like this idea for playoff baseball expansion. If you haven't heard, what their idea is starting in 2022, increasing from 5 teams in each league making the playoffs to 7 teams, where you would have your 3 division winners and 4 wild card teams. The team with the best record in each league would get a first round bye. And then what you would do is you would have on the day after the final day of the season, they would end the season on a Saturday, and then the next day they would have a TV special in which the team with the second best record in each league got to pick which wild card team they play in the first round. The team with the third best record would get to pick which wild card team, and among those they would get to pick either the 5th, 6th, or 7th team as far as record goes. The wild card, the wild card team with the best record wouldn't get a choice. They would just face whatever team is remaining, and then you would have three game wild card series on each side in the first round of the playoffs. That would all take place at the higher seeds ballpark. From there, then you would advance to the division series, where it's business as usual. 5-game series. Then the winners advance to play your league championship. In a 7-game series, winners advance to play in the World Series, a 7-game series. I don't like this because we've seen so many times over the last couple of years, they want to increase eyeballs on the TV set. They want to increase interest around the league, keep more teams in it late in the season. That's what I thought the second wild card was put in place for. That's why I liked that creation. But we've seen so many times over the last couple of years especially, you have so many teams trying to rebuild at the same time, so much so that, was it in 2018, the 5 teams that made the postseason in the American League, Red Sox, Astros, Indians, Yankees, and Twins as your 2 wild cards there. A's, as your 2 wild cards. Those 5 teams were the only teams in the American League with winning records that year. Right? So that means if you expand to 7 teams, there's a chance you could have a team in the postseason with a losing record. I don't want to. It's one thing seeing that in in football or in basketball where everybody has a chance to make the playoffs. But the playoffs are about the cream of the crop. I understand they want keep teams involved, keep cities interested for longer periods of time, but not if that means, a 79-win team in the postseason. And I have liked this format where you're increasing the importance of the division title. You have your 3 division teams, winning teams, and then you have 2 teams play off in a 1-game, do-or-die, sudden death wildcard playoff, increasing the importance on trying to win the division here. I mean, this format is not going to stop teams from tanking. It's not going to influence teams to start spending some of the small market teams to start spending money and raise their payroll. You know what you do? I look around at every sport. I see NFL, they have a salary cap. NBA has a salary cap. NHL has a salary cap. Baseball does not have a salary cap, and Players Association will probably never agree to one, and good for them. They do have kind of a pseudo cap now with this luxury tax, which that is the penalties on that I think are going to become less severe in the next CBA. But why in those other sports that have caps, they have a floor. They have a certain amount you have to spend or your tax on that. I think you got to spend something like 60%, 65% up to the salary cap. Why isn't there that in baseball? Why isn't it we forcing teams to spend money? Go out there, try and improve your team. Or here's a novel concept. You have a young player that's coming up on free agency. Rather than try and trade him away like the Baltimore Orioles did with Manny Machado or the Red Sox did with Mookie Betts, novel concept, you re-sign him yourself. And if you can't afford to have a team, you can't afford to spend up to that salary floor, 67 to 65% of what the first level of the luxury tax is, which would be somewhere around, I think that would be like $145 million. You can't spend at least that per year. You shouldn't own a team. And there's plenty of guys hanging out on Wall Street, plenty of billionaires around the country that would jump at the opportunity at owning a baseball team. We've seen Mark Cuban's wanted to get in for years. We just saw Steve Cohen wanted to try and get in the mix of things there. So that's how you stop this tanking problem that's going on in baseball. Not add more teams to the playoffs. Not make it so that 47% of your league is making the postseason. And I know that we're probably going to come upon a day where there's expansion and you see another team added to each league and you have 4 divisions of 4 teams in each the American and National League. But still, the postseason is supposed to be special. The postseason is not supposed to be for everybody. That's one of the big flaws that's in the NBA and the NHL and for a certain extent, the NFL, because there keeps being talk about adding a 3rd wild card and doing something like this there where only the top seed gets a bye. Keep it as it is. This, you keep wanting to draw eyes to the TV set. Baseball's not for everybody. There's nothing baseball can do that's going to, change things that make the non-baseball fans say, oh, now I got to get involved in this. There's no amount of rule changes, no gimmicks you can add to it. Will it be stupidity to the playoffs like this or the 3 batter minimum to save on time or the idea they talked about a year ago with putting a runner on second base to start the 11th inning of an extra inning game? There's nothing you could do that's going to change those who aren't baseball fans' mind on wanting to be a fan of it. Those who are fans of it, we love the sport the way it is. And so why mess with that? And that, my friends, was Keeping It Sports with M3 for Monday, February 17th, 2020. Everybody, have a great night. Enjoy your week, and I'll talk to you guys again, same time next Monday. Peace.
We have to go. Good night, everybody.
I have had enough of you.
Thank you for all the fun. Thank you. Hey, shut up, will ya?
I don't want to see you, I don't want to hear you, and I don't want to smell you. Now leave. I'll be back.